Hi, everybody, and welcome to English for You. I'm Pat.
And I'm Kathy.
So, Kathy was noticing as I sat down to record that I bought in a bottle of water, but also a mug of coffee. I would say at this point in my life, I drink at least 1 cup of coffee a day. How about you?
Well, actually, my favorite drink is Coca-Cola, especially during summertime.
Right.
I think it's a must. I usually have a cup of coffee in the morning to keep me awake and a cup of tea in the afternoon.
I go the opposite. I prefer to have tea in the morning as a kind of a gentle wake-up and then coffee in the afternoon to keep me going.
Sounds good.
So that's mine. Any other favorite drinks you have?
Sprite.
Okay, yeah, Sprite's
Lemon
pretty good.
tea.
Sprite always tastes to me like summer vacations I took as a kid in Spain and that part of Europe because that's what we'd normally get from, the pool or whatever, get a glass of Sprite or something like that. Do you drink the Coca-Cola Zero? Do you have Zero or do you have
I drink Zero or the one with sugar.
Okay, you don't mind either way. Have you tried some of the flavors, like the cherry one or the orange one that you sometimes see?
No.
The cherry one is quite good.
Really?
That also reminds me of summer holidays being a kid.
Wow.
I'm not such a fan of the orange one, though. Okay, so we're discussing some of our favorite drinks. Today's article is about a very interesting drink. It's an Irish coffee. We'll find out exactly what that is, the story behind it, and how it's made in this 2-day article. So let's read through day 1 right now.
Reading.
Coffee made the Irish way. Many people in Western countries like to drink coffee with dessert after dinner. In a fancy restaurant, someone might order an Irish coffee. This type of hot drink is special. It's made with alcohol and has whipped cream on top. Many people in Ireland say that they invented this drink. All of their stories start around the 1950s. In one report, Irish coffee was first served at a small airport in the town of Limerick. A worker at the airport's restaurant used whiskey to add a kick to the passenger's coffee. In a different tale, a travel writer from San Francisco, U.S., says he was served it at a different place in Ireland. He passed along the recipe to a cafe in the U.S. And yet another story says an Irish soldier made it during World War II. He later worked in a hotel restaurant and served it there. We don't know which story is true. Regardless, Irish coffee is now well loved around the world.
So our article starts by saying many people in Western countries like to drink coffee with dessert after dinner. Yeah, this is kind of an old tradition. You sort of have your meal, you have a dessert, and you have a cup of coffee with it or just after it sometimes. In some fancy places, you might even go into a different room to have your coffee or something like that after your... there's a teppanyaki restaurant I've been to where you eat the teppanyaki and then you go into a different room and they bring you like a coffee and a cake.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's somewhere on Zhongshan North Road, but I'll find out more about that later. We've been talking about having a dessert, okay? Firstly, make sure you spell the word dessert with 2 S's. If you leave out 1 S, you get desert, a very dry place. But a dessert is something you have after your main meal. It's part of a 3-course meal. We would say the appetizer, sometimes starter, the entree or main course, and your dessert. Now, in the UK, people often use the word pudding to mean any kind of dessert. You have a starter, a main course, and pudding. And it's not just like a pudding, like the kind of soft cup. It could mean any kind of dessert. Because a dessert could be anything from ice cream to cake to a plate of fruit, anything like that. Anything usually sweet that comes after a meal. For example, we could say, for dessert, Alan had a piece of chocolate cake and some ice cream.
That sounds delicious. Well, desserts are so important. Having dessert is a good way to end a meal. Dessert 就是餐后甜点。同学要记得不要和 dessert 少一个 s 这个沙漠这个字搞混了。So speaking of desserts, what are some of your favorite desserts, Pat?
Something with coconut in. I do like a coconut ice cream or something like that. I do like tiramisu, the sort of Italian dessert with a bit of coffee and chocolate in. Most cheesecakes are good. I don't turn down a cheesecake very often. How about yours?
Well, mines are like chocolate pudding ice cream. Chocolate, cheesecake, same as you. So after having them, I'll feel content and satisfied to start the day.
Yeah, to start the day with a dessert. That's pretty nice. Anyway, we often eat desserts like this because after a main meal of kind of like a savory or salty or spicy food, it's nice to have dessert, something that tastes very different, which kind of makes us feel full and satisfied. But let's get back to the article because we're not discussing desserts, we're discussing an after-dinner drink. The article says, in a fancy restaurant, someone might order an Irish coffee. So when we describe something as fancy, we're saying it's quite high class, quite expensive, and has a lot of quality. A fancy restaurant has great food, nice decorations, a nice atmosphere, and an expensive check at the end. So we could say, for example, John took Mary to a fancy restaurant for their wedding anniversary.
Fancy 就是昂贵的、豪华的。For example, fancy clothes, a fancy car. Fancy 这个字也有喜爱、爱好的意思。例如 What do you fancy for dinner? 你晚餐想吃什么？I don't fancy walking in the rain. 我不喜欢在雨中行走。而课文中这里说的，在贵的餐厅里面，有人可能会点爱尔兰咖啡。
So yeah, we're talking about an Irish coffee. The word Irish is used to talk about a person or a thing that comes from Ireland. It could be the whole island. We'll get to that in a moment. Or the word Irish can be related to Ireland's culture.
Irish 在课文当中呢是形容词，指的是爱尔兰的，但这个字也可以当作名词使用，意思是爱尔兰人、爱尔兰语，而爱尔兰这个国家就是 Ireland. So, what is an Irish coffee and how is it made?
The article says this type of hot drink is special. It's made with alcohol and has whipped cream on top. So alcohol is any drink that has a certain percentage of ethanol in it, from beer, which is about 5%, to wine, about 13%, and then stronger drinks like whiskey and Gauliang, which are about 40%.
That's pretty special. It's made with alcohol and has whipped cream on top. 这种咖啡里面含有酒精哦，而且有 whipped cream 打发的鲜奶油在表面上。Whipped 是动词 whip 的过去分词，那 whip 是搅打、搅拌成糊状，所以 whipped 在这里是当形容词用，意思是搅打过的。
So there are many stories about how this drink came into being. We start the next paragraph by saying, many people in Ireland say that they invented this drink. So Ireland is the island to the west of the UK mainland. So the central, southern and western parts are a separate country. The Republic of Ireland, this is completely independent. And then the northeast corner is Northern Ireland, which is a part of the UK.
这种咖啡的创始有几个版本的故事，有许多的爱尔兰人说这种饮料是他们创造的。Irish people say they invented Irish coffee. That makes sense.
And it certainly does, yes. Here we have today's grammar point, which is the use of a noun clause. When the whole clause after the conjunction that, this is the thing that Irish people say. Irish people say that, and then we have a noun clause. Now we can omit the word that if we want and say people in Ireland say they invented the drink. This is fine. And we can use other verbs instead of say in the first clause of the sentence. We could say people think, people remember, people know that, and so on, followed by a noun clause. Here's an example. Kelly thinks that, or Kelly thinks her new haircut looks great.
这里我们来看一个文法。 that 引导名词子句。that 这个字呢，当从属连接词的时候，后面可以接一完整的句子，一完整的子句，是名词子句的用法。那如同名词，这个名词子句可以做主词啊、受词、主词补语以及同位语等使用。我们来举个例子。当 that 是受词的时候，像课文当中这句 Many people in Ireland say that they invented this drink。 这时候 that 子句呢是当 say 的受词，所以可以省略。那同学注意咯， that 子句当主要子句动词的受词时， that 是可以省略的。例如 Mom said that she would take us to Disneyland this summer。 妈妈说这个夏天她会带我们去迪士尼乐园。这句当中 that she would take us to Disneyland this summer 是名词子句，作为动词 said 的受词，所以呢这句的 that 可以省略，写成 Mom said she would take us to Disneyland this summer。
Now, we also use the word invent in that last sentence.To invent something is to come up with the idea for something. You don't discover it or find it elsewhere. You don't take the idea from someone or something else. You create it yourself. For example, we could say Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone.
Invent 是动词，意思是发明、创造，名词是 invention。 另外补充另外一个 invent 的意思，它也有捏造或是虚构哦。For example, if you and your classmate are late for class, you might say to each other, we must invent an excuse for being late. So back to our article, many people in Ireland say they invented this drink.And
this happened around 70 years ago. The article says all of their stories start around the 1950s.
Here's one of the stories. We see that in one report, Irish coffee was first served at a small airport in the town of Limerick.
Yep, and Limerick is in the south of Ireland. So next we see that a worker at the airport's restaurant used whiskey to add a kick to the passengers' coffee.Whiskey is a type of alcohol, a strong type. It's made from different kinds of grain and stored in barrels to give it flavour. There are different whiskies from around the world, with Scotch and Irish being two of the most famous kinds. Kavalan and Oran, both from Taiwan, are whiskies. A quick note on spelling here. In Scotland, they spell whiskey without the letter E. It's just W-H-I-S-K-Y.But in Ireland and the US, they spell it with an E, W-H-I-S-K-E-Y. Either way, it all comes from a Gaelic term meaning the water of life.
Whiskey 就是威士忌酒哦。We know that a great deal of whiskey is made in Scotland, and here in the article it says that whiskey was added to passengers' coffee.Yep,
and a passenger is someone who is riding in but not driving a kind of vehicle. So people in the back seats of cars are passengers, as are people on the bus, the MRT, and on planes. So we could say, when the plane landed, all the passengers were asked to remain in their seats.Passenger
就是乘客、旅客。同学们如果去搭交通工具，听到英文广播内容的时候，通常都会听到这个字哦。那如果你要形容这辆公车可承载50名乘客，然后用 passenger 这个字来造句的话，英文你就可以说 This bus can carry 15 passengers. 而这里有一个很有趣的字 kick， 千万不要解释成踢球的踢哦。这里的 kick 是名词，意思是指酒的刺激性，所以 add a kick 就是增加酒的刺激性。
So that's one story about Irish coffee. Here's another. The article says, in a different tale, a travel writer from San Francisco, US, says he was served it at a different place in Ireland. San Francisco is a large city in California, and also we can see today's grammar point in that sentence, this time without using the conjunction that.
那刚前面提到的发明爱尔兰咖啡的故事有好多个版本，所以这里提到的是第二种版本的故事哦。大家可以留意一下哦，在这里就没有用到从属连接词的 that 的。So, did he keep the skill of making Irish coffee to himself?
Not at all. The writer's story continues. He passed along the recipe to a cafe in the US. To pass something along to someone means to tell another person about a thing or give them that thing so they may use it as well. You could pass along things from father to son in a family or pass on advice you got from someone else to a third person.
Pass something along to somebody. 将什么东西传给谁，什么人。So he shared the recipe with other people. Here we're talking about passing along a recipe.
That's right. And a recipe is the instructions for how to make something you can eat or drink. And it includes both the list of ingredients and the right method to follow for making it.
Recipe 就是食谱。例如你很喜欢吃饼干，你很想学怎么做饼干，那可能呢，你就会请教很厉害的糕点师傅，然后问他说 May I have your recipe for cookies? 这时候 recipe 后面会接 for 这个字 A recipe for something 某种食物的做法。
Now here's a third story about the origin of Irish coffee. The article says, and yet another story says an Irish soldier made it during World War II. A soldier is someone who is paid to be in an army. They're professionals and they stay in the army for a fixed amount of time, doing what they're told and going where they are sent. Their job is to fight if necessary, but also to protect places and people, keep the peace, and so on. So we could say few soldiers survived the war, and those that did were affected by the terrible experience.
第三个故事是说呢，这种咖啡是由一位爱尔兰士兵发明的。Soldier 名词就是士兵、军人。You usually see them in the army. 这个字如果当动词的话，有坚持的意思，后面通常会加上 on。例如 The relief workers kept soldiering on. 救援人员呢不屈不挠地继续工作。
We also see about this soldier that he later worked in a hotel restaurant and served it, Irish coffee, there.
So there are many stories, but as the article says, we don't know which story is true.
Next, it says, regardless, Irish coffee is now well loved around the world. We use the adverb regardless when we say we're not going to regard or consider the information we just gave or learned. We're saying that the previous statement doesn't really matter for the conclusion that we're going to make. So you might say, regardless of what you think, I'm going to do this my way. So it doesn't matter what you think, it won't affect my decision. And here's another example. Regardless of the weather, I'm going out for a walk to stretch my legs. So it doesn't matter what the weather's like, I'm going out.
这边有一个很重要而且很好用的副词，就是 regardless。无论如何，不管怎样，不顾一切的。所以这边有一个和刚刚 Pat 老师造的句子有相关的。We tried to discourage him from going out in the storm, but he went regardless. 我们试图阻拦呢他不要在暴风雨中外出，但他还是不顾一切的出去了。这两个句子都和天气有关，然后分别从双方的角度去描述。
Okay, well, that brings us to the end of the first part of the article. So now it's time for today's For You Chat question.
For You Chat.
Okay, so this is all about a famous Irish drink, and day one was talking about where the idea came from. So our question is, what are some famous Taiwan drinks, and how did they start?
One of the most well-known drinks is bubble milk tea. It's also known as pearl milk tea, 珍珠奶茶. It's a Taiwanese drink invented in the 1980s and has chewy tapioca balls, which are also called pearls in it. 里面加了木薯粉做成的珍珠. Well, there are two competing stories for the origin of bubble tea. I'm going to share one here. 春水堂 claims that Lin Shouhui, which is the tea house's product development manager, is the creator of bubble milk tea. She randomly poured her 粉圆 into the iced tea drink during a board meeting in 1988. Then this beverage was well received at the meeting and leading to its inclusion on the menu, and it ultimately became the top-selling product.
Yeah, I also heard it was a guy in Tainan who bought some of the balls from a market, and he started with white ones, and he decided to add them to his drink, and so I guess it goes back and forth. Have you been to the Taichung tea house where it was supposed to be?
春水堂
Yeah,
yes.
It is pretty good there, the bubble milk tea. I guess the other Taiwanese drinks that I know of are probably just made using like whatever you can get, like the cactus kind of juice that comes from Penghu. I guess they've got cactuses. Let's make a drink with them. The only other one I know a little about is Kavalan, which was the Taiwanese whiskey that we mentioned a bit earlier. I know that they got some whiskey makers from Scotland and hired them to come over and build this distillery, which is like a factory out there in whatever it is, Yilan or Hualien County, and kind of tell them how to get things started. And that led to this creation of this drink, which is doing pretty well around the world these days. Okay, that is all we've got time for today, but join us again tomorrow to find out how to make an Irish coffee. We'll also learn a little bit more about its history and where you can find it today. We'll see you then. Bye for now.
Bye.
Coffee made the Irish way. Many people in Western countries like to drink coffee with dessert after dinner. In a fancy restaurant, someone might order an Irish coffee. This type of hot drink is special. It's made with alcohol and has whipped cream on top. Many people in Ireland say that they invented this drink. All of their stories start around the 1950s. In one report, Irish coffee was first served at a small airport in the town of Limerick. A worker at the airport's restaurant used whiskey to add a kick to the passenger's coffee. In a different tale, a travel writer from San Francisco, US, says he was served it at a different place in Ireland. He passed along the recipe to a cafe in the US. And yet another story says an Irish soldier made it during World War II. He later worked in a hotel restaurant and served it there. We don't know which story is true. Regardless, Irish coffee is now well loved around the world.
Vocabulary Review.
Dessert. After dinner, we went to the night market and ate ice cream for dessert. Fancy. When I get married, I want to have a fancy party in a big, expensive restaurant. Invent. The computer has helped people save lots of time since it was invented. Passenger. Most of the passengers on this train are traveling to Kaohsiung. Soldier. Thomas joined the army to become a soldier and fight for his country. Regardless. David doesn't want to see a movie with me today, but I'll go by myself regardless.
智慧小补帖
Alcohol. Whiskey. Recipe.
以上节目是由活用空中美语制作。活用空中美语杂志，请洽询全国各大书店。如欲索取试听教材，请来电02-2364-4000 02-2364-4000，或上网查询，网址是 www.english4u.net www.english4u.net 自 u.net。